What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 853. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, how's the week been?
Great, actually. It's been a very, very good week.
Yeah? You're just crushing it all week, huh?
Well, just business as usual. I appreciate the weeks where nothing bad or odd happens. It's not to say that those happen every week, but it's just nice to have a chill turn.
Sometimes normal's good for sure. I can definitely appreciate that. So for the show this week, Luis, I thought we would do a little bit of a laid back episode. It's kind of a laid back day. We're both kind of in a laid back mood. And we're going to do some Q&A and some story time and just hang out. We kind of indulge ourselves with one of these every once in a while. And this week we're doing it. We like, part of the show is hangouts. And sometimes we lean in to the hanging out part of it. And that's what we're going to do this time. So we've got a bunch of great questions from our Patreon supporters, or we're going to talk some stories and just kind of make it a chill hangout type episode. So before we do, we want to say thank you to, that's right, everybody who supports us on Patreon. I just mentioned it, but that is how you can submit the questions for the Q&A episodes like this one, or the Patreon question of the week, or when we have a guest on, if you want to ask them a question. I'll put up a post. This one actually went up just, I don't know, like an hour ago or something, because we decided a little bit late that we wanted to do this one today, but it's really great. I mean, we've already got a ton of questions from our Patreon supporters, and it's really just a great way to connect directly with your audience. And that's one of the reasons that we love Patreon. Our Patreon is patreon.com/limited resources if you'd like to join. We also want to say thank you to Ultimate Guard. They make the best stuff in the business. It is known, it's that combination. This is one of the things that I really like about watches, that is such a big hobby and part of my job and all that stuff now, which is when you can marry really great design with really great materials, right? When you can put those two things together in a sensible way where everything kind of clicks, that's what Ultimate Guard's really good at. And if you hold on to their products, you'll know right away, oh, this thing feels nice in your hands. They have a good weight to them, and they're really well thought out design wise. It's kind of interesting if you go from like those old school kind of like just plastic and Velcro deck boxes that we all used for so long to something like a nice product from Ultimate Guard. And you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is a lot better. I was like, how do we use those like for so long? I mean, even pro players would just carry their deck around in one of those things. I had one that I got at I think it was the first pre-release I went to, which was Shards of Alara, and it had a Johnny Vengeant on it. Remember Johnny Vengeant, Luis?
Johnny Vengeant was cool.
Oh, Johnny Vengeant was so sweet.
I played that card in a lot of constructed decks back then.
Yeah, it was really good then.
Yeah.
I guess it would get kind of just laughed at now, right?
Yeah, it's probably 1.5 mana too much for modern limited, or constructed rather.
Yeah. Anyway, and I had one of those forever. It turns out there's better stuff out there, and that is Ultimate Guard. If you want to check out their full line of products, you can head over to ultimateguard.com. And if you want to pick something up, you can get it from your favorite local game store or online retailer. Thank you, Ultimate Guard. We're not going to do Patreon question of the week because we're going to be answering Patreon questions. But Luis, I thought we could just kind of chit chat a little bit before we get into them.
For sure.
And talk about some of the old school stories and the stuff that's been going on. I've been kind of taking a look at my cards. I don't have that many. I'm not really a collector.
I don't either. I think I have a lot fewer cards than people would guess in terms of like volume. I have some, pretty expensive cards, but I don't have like boxes upon boxes because I pretty aggressively cull stuff. Partially because my organization system, as I've described, is look through every card I own to figure out, where those cards are. So given that, the fewer cards I own, the fewer I have to look through, you see?
Yeah, I am curious though, as I was looking at the few that I have as well, what makes you keep a card versus not? Or like, what is your jam as far as like owning Magic cards goes?
I think it's, if I think the card is going to be useful to me in the future, or I have some kind of attachment to the card. So what that means is like, if, I'm not going to toss, or if a card is valuable. So useful kind of encapsulates that, but it's like, do I think I'm going to play this card? So even if the card is relatively low value or no value, like, Spell Pierce is not really a card that's worth anything. But I tend to not throw away or give away Spell Pierces because I eventually will use them in a lot of different contexts. Or a card that's valuable. If it's not valuable, I don't have an emotional attachment to it, and I don't think that I'm very likely to sell it or play it, then yeah, I usually tend to donate it, or to usually just like people I know who like either like I know people who run Magic clubs or anything like that, or just to like someone I know who plays Magic and I think would appreciate it. But I am certainly not very sentimental about cards in general, except for like literally the ones that I like.
What are some of those?
Well,
like Power 9 stuff, like old.
Well, I definitely have those cards, but it's more like I really like beta lands and beta cards. I have a lot of old cards in that realm just because I find those cards really fun to look at and think about and play. I mean, old cards, like there's just really nothing like them.
Yeah, they have a certain vibe. Did you say beta specifically, or do you mean alpha?
Well, alpha and beta both.
Yeah,
I would say.
You just don't see the alpha stuff around quite as often. Yeah, what's your thoughts on the monetary part? Like, do you feel like really happy to have some money parked in some Magic cards, or do you feel like you're giving up something but it's worth it to you? Or
it's tricky because like I don't view Magic cards as like an investment. I think that's like I don't think that's a great way to view them, and I don't think it's like that fun of a thing to do either. Like I don't know. I don't look at my hobbies. Well, I monetize my hobbies plenty, actually. It's just because but as my job, right? As doing something like the podcast or, game design or making Magic videos. I don't buy and sell cards because I'm trying to make an investment. I do have a lot of old cards, but it's not stuff I've picked up with an eye to reselling it as much as I like these cards. Like I got into old school, for a while, like about a decade ago, and I remember just picking up a lot of old school staples. I have a bunch of Beta JMD tomes because I just love that card. So there's no real, look, I'm not unaware that these cards are worth money or that's relevant, but I'm not just using them as a way to like make some money.
Yeah.
That's not really my goal. It makes me feel better about spending a bunch of money on a card, knowing I can get some portion of the value back, of course.
Or they could go up.
Right. Or they could go up.
Because they have, in your career, they've gone up, infinite, right?
Some of them. The prices are actually lower than they were a couple of years ago. Zero interest rate phenomena, as it were. Where everyone was just going nuts. But I look at the way people interact, like, partially this is I'm not part of the Pokemon like TCG community really, but whenever I see tweets about Pokemon, people are all just talking about how much the cards are worth. And like
I don't think they actually play or even did.
Yeah, I have played the Pokemon card game, and I think like playing Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh is more fun. Of the bigger games of Flesh and Blood, Star Wars Unlimited. I would honestly play all those games over Pokemon. It's not that I think it's a bad game, or if you don't like it, that's like a mistake or whatever. But I generally don't see. I don't see the appeal over a game that's like a little bit deeper strategy. I think
Yeah.
And maybe I don't want to get too far ahead of my skis here. I'm sure there's a lot going on in Pokemon and I haven't really looked at it for a while, but. I don't know about what I don't know what your experience is, but most of my experience with people talking about Pokemon is just talking about market value and scalpers and graded cards and
100%. It's a culture thing. It's interesting because, Magic really does have both. It has people who purely collect and it has players. And then there's a huge overlap in between, like people like you and I who have a few cards or maybe have a collection, but we're not really all in on collecting, but we have some. But for me, like when I look at the old cards that I've tended to hang on to, it's mostly like nostalgia and I just like them. Like they just make they give me a feeling. Right. But also the reason that I liked them originally was because a lot of them were good cards, like they were interesting cards in the game, where I feel like the Pokemon thing has really like transcended any one version of the game, whether it's the card game or the, Game Boy or whatever, however people enjoyed that game. I think the Pokemon phenomenon is sort of expressed in the cards, but I from what I've seen, there's many, many, many people who are hardcore Pokemon collectors and Pokemon fans, but they don't play the card game, and they haven't. And that's not really what they like. Yeah. I think the reason I think I brought up the Magic stuff, Luis, is like with the values is because I have a few cards and they're pretty valuable. Like I have a Beta Time Vault, for example. And that was my favorite card back in the day. And I always wanted one. I could never afford it. And then one time I was at a GP and, Corbin, the hustler, I do. Yeah. Corbin Hustler, he deals cards and, he's had and has, worked the singles for shops where he's from in Oklahoma and like, all that kind of stuff. And, he had gotten his hands on a Time Vault and he was like, yeah, I'm going to sell it. And so he was going to go at a GP and shop around to the things. And I was like, well, what are you trying to get for it? And he's like, well, if somebody offers me this much, I'll probably just sell it to them. And I'm like, well, I'll offer you that much. Cause it was like basically a dealer price. It was like,
he was looking to sell at about like what he would get from a dealer.
Exactly. Dealer to dealer. And so for me, I'm like, well, that's like, I don't know, 15 or 20% lower than they normally go for. Like if I were just to buy one. So I said, could I buy it from you? Like as a not dealer? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, here you go. So anyway, that was like freaking 10 years ago or something. And I still have the thing, but I don't do anything with it. And it's really just sitting there. And I have thought numerous times, I view it the same way that you do. I don't really view it as an investment. And I'm like, well, if that's the case and it has, a decent chunk, it's worth a couple $1,000, maybe I should sell it, if I'm not doing anything with it. And, but then every single time I go to grab it, I'm like, oh, I love this thing. It's like, it still sparks joy, but I just, trying to be an adult and be good with finances. Also, I'm trying to say, well, does that really make sense for me to own that card? And, in worst case, if I just really felt like I still needed it in my life, I could go get another one and you know what I mean? Like, take that money back out or whatever. But
yeah, I think it's interesting. And I don't think, to be clear, it's bad to be aware of the value of your cards. I think that, we both are. And when I've made card purchases, it really is backstopped by the fact that I know that they're still worth money. But I do find it a little off-putting that when the only interaction about a game is like what the value of the pieces are. Because then it's like, then you're kind of playing sports cards, right? Where like a LeBron rookie is worth a bunch of money and that's kind of what you care about with it, which I'm not saying that sports cards enthusiasts also don't care about cards for other reasons too. They clearly do, but they're not game pieces. And I just kind of get the vibe that Pokemon cards are less game pieces the way I've seen them talked about. And maybe it's because like a mass influx of like crypto dudes went into that or, you talk about, Jake Paul or whatever, but who knows? Collecting stuff is fun no matter what. So I really don't fault anyone for enjoying collection.
And I guess I think I know the answer to this, but I've never asked you, are you get them graded? Like you don't do that, right? Where they put them in that slab and
slabbing them. I have some graded cards, and I when I did the beta draft in Las Vegas, you remember this?
Oh yeah.
Funny story about that. I should just talk about this draft actually, because this draft is just hilarious.
I don't think people that weren't around would even believe that this is real.
Yeah, it's incredible. So this was Vegas in like 2016 or 2017, I think actually. I'm not sure. Yeah. There's like Vegas tournaments all the time. As an aside to our show, which is an entire aside in of itself, there was like a 15-year gap where they didn't hold a single tournament in Las Vegas, kind of like out of the fear of like, oh, Magic's gambling. Now there's just 3 tournaments a year, and it's great. It's just a good city to hold tournaments. They
literally sell out the entire convention center like 3 days in a row now.
I remember Sasso, John Sasso, the founder of Channel Fireball, my former boss and business partner. Great dude. I love John. He was just for years, he was just like, why aren't they? He was so mad about it. He was just like, or not like mad, like angry at them, but more like, just like, what the hell? Like, this doesn't make any sense. This is vindication
for Sasso. If he were to show
really
up
is, though,
at the last Magic Con, he'd be like, really? Like, this is ridiculous.
So, we'll go to Vegas, and I'm slated to do coverage, you know, and I know because you're on the team, and this was the Vegas, the giant Grand Prix Vegas that I think Monty won with Affinity, right?
Yep.
Or something like that.
And
so
now coverage commentator Monty DeVuti, yes,
exactly. And but Wizards in conjunction with I guess. Maybe Channel Fireball was running the event actually at that point.
The coverage
I think we probably were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in conjunction with us, but Wizards was basically providing all of this. They were running a beta draft, and the way the beta draft worked, it was incredible. But basically what happened is, I guess they got a bunch of beta product or found a bunch of beta product. Yeah. So cool. And they're lucky that the people who found it weren't the type of people to just pocket it, because a lot of people in a big company, they find a storeroom that has beta packs and they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
This is $300,000, you know? Are you kidding me? But though I would imagine Wizards also select somewhat for people who wouldn't do that, just because the people who want to work at Wizards, they love Magic. They, you know, they're just not, they're less likely to be that type. Obviously anyone could. So I'm like, whoa, a beta draft. And the way you qualified for it was if you played these sealed events. And this was back, I guess we could probably exactly find the time, because it was Dominaria sealed. And I opened a mediocre sealed, but went 5-0 and made top 8. And this was on like Wednesday night or something. And then
they were running these events at the...
There were 8 sealed events, and the winners of each event got to play. And I draft a sick black-white deck. And if you remember Dominaria, it had the Lyra Dawnbringer, the 3 white, 5/5 flying first strike, you know, life gain or vision or life link, whatever. All your angels got +1/+1, the Baneslayer. And I played against this person, and in game 1, I blow them out completely with Saproling Infestation or whatever. Remember black instant, give a creature -1/-1, make a Saproling?
Yeah.
I just demolished them in a game that, like, I was probably winning anyway. And I debated whether to play it or not, but I'm like, you know, I think this will just lock up the game, so I'll play it. Really good I did, foreshadowing. I lose game 2. Game 3, I'm just horribly mana screwed. And they have this, like, nice Saproling draw. And I'm just like, God, I'm going to lose. My deck's the nuts, but I'm not going to get to do the beta draft. This is so bad. I'm so tilted. They ended up playing Sisay. That's the green-white for a legend that's XX. X is the number of creatures you have. And I like, first of all, they don't attack their 2/2 on turn 3 into my 1 black mana, because they're worried about the Saproling Infestation card. I don't think that's the name of the card, or maybe that is actually.
I don't remember.
They had the 2/2 that gives all their Thalids +1/+1, all their Saplings +1/+1. Very valuable card, so they don't attack into it. So they probably give up 4 damage by not attacking into it, something like that. And then later, they get me really low. I finally start drawing lands, and at one point, I tap out for Lyra, except I have 1 swamp up, because I got stuck on plains. I had 4 swamps in play, then I drew plains, then I drew another plains. They have a 6/6 Sisay and like 5 1/1 tokens. And if they just attack with everything, I'm forced to trump their 6/6, take no damage, but I'm tossing Lyra. I'm just dead. They debate and they decide not to attack because they don't want to get blown out by Saproling Infestation, which would have made their Sisay a 5/5. Lyra would have eaten it, gained 5. The game would have been over.
Yeah.
But it's like, I clearly don't have this card. I've been mana screwed for 10 turns, and there was a lot of opportunity that I could have had to just cast this to maybe save some damage or whatever. But they don't attack. And then I untap and I slam Urza's Ruinous Blast because I have a legend in play. I blow up all their stuff, and they have like a 1/1 Sisay left or something like that. And then my Lyra easily wins. So I qualify for the beta draft. And I go and I remember telling you and Hagen, I'm like, oh yeah, so you know how I'm supposed to do coverage on Saturday? I'm actually going to play the beta draft. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, it was like the negotiation was, I'm doing this. What happens now? Right?
Yeah, it was, and we ended up getting like Martel to help cover Rietzel, and like
that's right.
It was cool. Those guys stepped up, but it wasn't like my finest moment in terms of being a good coworker. But like, it was a beta draft. I would literally have done the draft if Rich Hagon told me to my face I would never work coverage again.
Dude, the hand of God could not have kept you off of that table. No, that has to be one of the absolute highlights of your whole entire career.
It really was. It really was. So we do this beta draft, and it's funny because like obviously, it's not a format most people have ever played. And I haven't literally drafted like, 3 sets of beta before, but I've done a lot of old drafts. In fact, for all the things I'm good at, I think if you were to choose someone who had to go back and play weird old format Rochester, like I got to be in your top couple people. Just we're
sure.
We're talking people like me, like Bob Maher, like Huey, like the people who,
totally.
the people who have been not only dinosaurs who have played a million years, but also people who have just done like millions of drafts in their life, and then also played a lot of these weird old formats where like, and I'll give you an example. So it's Rochester Draft, which is face up, right? Rochester is a horrendous format.
It's bad, but it's so good for beta draft.
I think there's some things it does nicely, but there's a lot that it does not do well. And what it does is you have 8 people. The first person opens their pack, puts all 15 cards face up, selects a card. It goes around in a circle until the last person who's right next to that person. Then they take 2 cards and they snake back, right? And you're playing round 1. The person who is directly across from you. So like the kitty corner 3 there, you go 3 seats over and it's there, right? So we start the Rochester draft, and to be clear, Rochester is also the best format you could have picked for the beta draft. That what they did do correctly, because it's like you get to see face up at people opening boxes and stuff like that. Other people, not me, but like and I think Ben S won because the of the 8 people who qualified for this draft, by the way, one was me, one was Martin Yuzo, one was Ben Stark. Yeah. So
and that's 3 players very much known for their limited prowess. I mean, that was impressive.
Yeah, we came out in force for that one, and we draft, and I'm across from Ian Suzuki, Scalding Hot Soup. He's he used to be pretty active on like Twitch and Twitter and all that. Good dude. I've talked to him a lot. And his deck was shaping up to be like the nuts. He opened like an Earthquake. He had a Fireball. He had 2 Crawl Worms. It's a 6 mana 6/4. He had some Elves. Such a good deck. Here's where I got to use my like Rochester experience a little bit. He didn't really notice this because I was kind of drafting red green as well. I picked up a Circle Protection red and a Circle Protection green. And what those cards do, they're an enchantment for 1 and a white, and you pay 1 and prevent all damage a source of that color would deal to you this turn. Does this sound like a fun card? No, this sounds like one of the dumbest cards you can imagine. And it clearly is. But in the context of beta draft, you can do some pretty good things. And what I ended up doing was basically splashing white for these 2 circles, and just 2 of the games, I got a cop red and a cop green out. He didn't pick up any enchantment removal, and no card in his deck could ever deal me damage. And I did find a way to win from there. I mean, it's just...
And those are the type of games you get, because you just don't get that many threats. Creatures are even difficult to come by. And if you have an unassailable answer to literally any threat, game over. Like, then you're just talking about who gets decked.
Yeah, and as it turned out, I was also splashing blue for Prodigal Sorcerer, 2 and a blue for a 1/1 tap, deal 1 to any target.
Which killed a lot of different creatures and, of course, could kill your opponent.
Yes, and it eventually did kill Ian as well. And so then, one sec, I got to go and deal with these guys. Give me 1 second here.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I'll talk about I looked up some of the details on the actual event. This was in GP Las Vegas 2018 is when this actually went down. And it had Luis, Ben, Martin, Ian, who we mentioned, and then there were 4 other players, so a total of 8. But the cool part about the whole thing was we did it Rochester so that we could put the cards face up and get that big reaction. Like, that's the main thing, is that, we want to open up beta packs, right? I mean, Wizards comes out and says, we have these packs, what should we do with them? And they end up putting together this event. I mean, it was ludicrous, right? And trust me, this wasn't so long ago that it didn't feel exactly how it would today. Like, if somebody came up and said, we're going to do a draft of literal beta, like every person's going to open up 3 beta packs, it hit exactly the same. They're just very rare, very expensive. I've never heard of anything like this, like actually happening in real life. And when they actually announced it, it was everybody's like, this cannot be real. And then every single Magic player, Luis, I was just updating them on it was 2018 at GP Las Vegas. That was the event itself. And I was just kind of reiterating that, yes, that was a while back now, but when they announced that it was a beta draft, it hit just as hard as it would today. It just was like, what? Like there's just so few of those packs and cards around at all. And I remember just being completely shocked that they were even going to do it, like that it could even be done. And then they did.
Yeah. And it was awesome. I ended up playing Martin in round 2, and he asked if I wanted to split. And the prize, by the way, the prize wasn't just the cards you opened, which was incredible. Ben S opened a Mox, Emerald, and like an Underground Sea. I opened like a Fast Bond, a Nevinyrral's Disc, and people were rare drafting heavily, which also worked out because the first place prize was a starter of Alpha, an Alpha starter deck.
I think that's kind of the thing that gets lost to the history books.
Not a lot of those running around,
A sealed starter alpha starter is, and I don't know how much our audience is into collecting. We're all kind of hardcore spikes and we're playing a lot online these days and stuff. But I mean, just real quick refresher, they came out with Alpha, as a way to test the cards out in the market and to test the print runs and to make sure that everything looked and felt right and that there weren't any typos or changes they needed to make. And that meant that they did a very, very limited run. Then they made some modifications to the cards, to the shape of them, to some of the printing. They fixed some stuff. And then Beta came out, which also has almost another tiny print run by any comparison. And then they came out with Unlimited, which was the one where they said, okay, we're going to print until we meet demand, basically. But those first two, and particularly Alpha, is an extremely limited print run. So, dude, I don't know what one of those starters is worth, but like, is it $100,000? Is it 50? Is it, I don't know, but it's a ton of money.
I think at its peak, it was about 100,000, maybe a little bit more. That was probably around 2020, 2021 was like when everything was just going nuts. I don't know what it is now.
At that time, it was like in the 30 range, right? Like in 2018?
No, and I'll tell you why I know that. It's because I beat Martin badly. He wanted to split. I was like, no way, your deck sucks. And look, Martin's a good friend of mine. He now even works for Ultimate Guard, our sponsor. Yeah. I love Martin. We've been on Team Channel Firewall. We made the Hall of Fame together. We've spent so much time together. But it's like, I don't need to give you money. And when we play and you want to offer a split and my deck is like just going to smash yours, like I'm just going to do that. Like that's
right. And if Martin beat you, you would have said great job. Like you're willing to sit down and let the chips fall, as it were. But no, you're not chopping anything. So you beat him
badly. And then I make the finals against Tim Rivera, and Tim Rivera I played him in my first Grand Prix, so we go back a ways. Not like we're good buddies. Like I liked him. We just we don't really talk much or whatever. He was from like Reno, I think, or Vegas, and we'd see him at PTQs and stuff growing up. But we played in the first Grand Prix I ever played, Grand Prix Anaheim. But his deck was great. He had a really good deck. He had a black deck with like Sengir Vampire and he had Dark Ritual and he had some good stuff. And we go and we're allowed to split however we want, basically, because it's the finals. It's not affecting anyone else. And it basically, we got a quote that said someone would buy the Alpha starter for $16K.
Oh, okay.
And like cash on hand in the room. Like, I think it was maybe even Dave Williams, or at least he was definitely willing to pay that much, but other people were too, maybe.
Yeah.
And there was also just like $2,500 for second for just no reason. It's like, real free money tournament. And me and Tim basically were going to range. She just wanted cash right away. I was like, tell you what, if we value the Alpha starter at $16K, and we have $2,500 for second, that's 18 and a half. Like, just that would be 9.25 or 9,250 each. And I think maybe even he could just took 10,000. I took like 8,000 or something like that or whatever it was. And we played because it was on camera, and he beat the hell out of me, but I kept the Alpha starter and I still have it.
So you did a deal before you played where you got to get the starter and he got to get the funds that would have, if basically you just did a prize split with you getting the starter instead of the money.
Yeah. And we basically split the total value of the finals, except I got to keep the starter and he got money right away, especially.
Yeah. dude.
And yeah, I was pretty happy with that, I'll say.
Did you sell it?
No, it's chilling.
No, I meant like in the room. You know, you had the offer was a useful tool for you to price.
That was just so we could set our price, basically. Yeah. And I don't think that was like crazy out of bounds. It was hard to know what it was. I mean, we were both happy with this deal, and
totally. I mean, it's also one of those things where like the thing is worth what somebody will pay you for it, and everybody has their own idea about what things are worth until they put it up for sale and say, okay, who's going to write me a check? Who's going to present me with the funds? That is when you find out what something's actually really worth, not what you read online. That's true for the stuff I'm in with watches and all that stuff too. People think their stuff's worth way, way more than it is. And it gets really interesting when you get to the high end of a particular space, like an Alpha Starter, is a high end product in the magic world. That's one of the most valuable, kind of individual products that you can get your hands on. And that is where things get very, very quickly.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like the range of over the fast, 5 to 10 years or whatever, where these things were being sold, that the prices, some were sold within months, 3 times as much as the others. Like it happens. The other thing is there was a period of time here where people were getting really into cracking these, like doing like openings. And I'll tell you what, every time I saw someone open an Alpha Starter, I'm like, yep, my Alpha Starter just is worth now 2% more or whatever. Totally. The more of those that get opened, the more valuable mine becomes because it's not being opened. And certainly I don't plan on doing so.
Wait, I thought we were going to crack-a-pack that bad boy on the show today. Right? We're not?
Yeah, do a little crack-a-pack.
Yeah, see what we get. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was a absolutely insane event. I think me and Huey maybe commentated that thing.
I would believe it.
He was in the booth quite a bit at the time with CFB and stuff, and probably also would have been willing to come in. Yeah, that's amazing. What was the best card you got out of the draft?
Well, the funny thing is, it's hard to describe for people who weren't involved in the scene. The old graded cards, people were really going crazy for. So like some of the cards I got really late in the draft were very surprising. Like I sold a Conservator and a Sacrifice. These are uncommons that you could probably not even name what they do. They're really bad. Conservator is like 4-mana artifact, 3-tap, prevent 2 damage to you or something. I can
see the artwork. It has like a star kind of.
It looks like the big like calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the one that looks like the big like Mayan calendar kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I actually ended up getting all these graded and sold them to a lot of the card collectors because they were also they also looked really good. They were high graded cards,
fresh, right? Like,
so I didn't make out like a bandit in the packs I opened. I definitely did with the draft as a whole. I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah, but you also made it to the finals. Because I remember I think Ben got like an Underground Sea and maybe a Mox Emerald?
And a Mox Emerald, yeah. Those are the two cards he got.
It's pretty good opens for Ben Stark. Yeah.
So some say Ben doesn't deserve it. I would
That still echoes through the halls of eternity all these years later. All right. Do you want to answer some questions from
let's do it.
Our people? All right. First question up comes from Sasha, who says, question for Marshall, is there any chance you consider making a run to qualify for the limited championship next year? I know you elected to pursue coverage over chasing the PT, but the limited championship seems like the high-level limited Magic event for you. I'm sure I speak for the whole LR audience when I say it'd be awesome to see you qualify and compete. And of course, we hope Luis is there as well. Luis, can you use your Hall of Fame on that event?
I can, and honestly, that is kind of what I'm expecting. Not expecting, because I don't want to use a word that's too strong. That's what I'm hoping to come back for.
Gotcha.
I am going to do what I can to make that work.
To see if you can make it work. Yeah, it's still. Yeah. I know it's still in the earlier. The kids aren't exactly off to college just yet, so I know you're kind of cutting it close. But that would be a great one. That's really interesting, Sasha, that you bring that up because it's very difficult for me. Because everything that you just said about how special it would be to play in an event like that, as from a commentator perspective, I don't want to miss out on commentating that event. I want to be the one to preside over the finals or a bunch of the rounds of it. That's my dream event. I mean, period. Right. Like it, the shortcut is it's a limited pro tour. It's not, right. It has a few other little whatevers but it is effectively the highest level, purely limited event I will have ever been involved with, that is on this scale. Right. I mean, I've got to cover some, smaller scale stuff that was limited, but I mean, this is, I've been doing this long enough to like start thinking in terms of like my career. And when I look back, I'm like, for these limited, especially these really special limited events, like I want to be the one to commentate it. I want to be the one to translate what we're seeing on screen to the viewer and all that stuff. And while playing in it would be really awesome, I kind of don't let my brain go down that rabbit hole too much because I'm just like so reluctant to give up the chance to cover it. And I want that on my resume. Go ahead.
We were just talking literally about this yesterday about whether you would play or commentate at a pro tour. And because I was telling them how, like our friends here in Denver, we were talking and how when there's Grand Prix, you used to play in some of the Grand Prix, like a limited one. But if you ever like qualified, you would end up in a spot where you're like, not only do you give up exactly what you're talking about, but also money. Like you will make more money commentating than playing in the pro tour
100%.
On average, for certainly.
100%.
Like, I mean, because you make more money commentating than most people do playing on the pro tour on average, including the best players, because it's just a job and you get paid the same every time. The pro tour, obviously, you can spike a 10x or mostly a lot less.
Right. And I'm realistic about my current skill set, and it's not there. And also, for a regular pro tour, I would have to get good at constructed, which I actually think I could do. I think I would need some training basically, but like I'm good at, like, if I get told what to do, I can do it and I can learn the subtleties. Like if I jam, I can get it, but that's not my normal stance. I'm not that good at that by default. And I don't really like it that much. And then I would also have to be really good at limited, which I'm pretty good, but I'm not pro tour level good. So it's like, there's that too. Just that, like, I know I'm very likely to just get my butt kicked anyway. If it was just a random PT and I let's just say I fell into a qualification, I would definitely play it, like, for sure. Like that would be kind of a dream for me, and I would love it for my job, and I would be willing to give up, the money for that one event. But I wouldn't want to put together, like, I don't want to be a pro Magic player at this point. That doesn't interest me at all.
It doesn't. It also doesn't exist.
Yeah, and it also isn't a thing. So, at least like it used to be. So, but yeah, I don't know. I have kicked it around a little bit, but I'll tell you, I just don't want to, there's a pro tour, coming up in the summer here that's in Amsterdam, and I wasn't going to go, but limited drew me back in. And, there's I guess is it known about this stuff, Luis? Do you even know about this? It probably is known.
I don't know anything.
But you're not going.
Don't count on me for information.
Whatever. Anyway, I am going, and it's because of limited reasons, and it's because I didn't want to miss out. I just, I don't know how much longer I get to do commentary for. Right? Like I'm still doing fine at it, but there comes a time.
You're not that old. You got some years left.
But I've been doing it for a while, and things can change and whatever, and so I just don't want to look back and be like, oh well, you went 1-3 at the limited PT or whatever because you wanted to do it, but you missed out on, getting to cover such a cool special event. So that's kind of how I think of it, Sasha. So I would say I'm much, much more likely to commentate it than even really try to play. Next question comes from Sam, who says, hey, both. What do you think are the most overrated and underrated decks/strategies in Vintage Cube? I'm thinking mainly about the MTGO/Arena cubes, but I'd be curious to hear about how this translates to LSV's team draft server as well.
Well, it's interesting because it's a little hard to tell exactly what overrated, underrated means. It's always an ambiguous term, like who is rating it or whatever. I will say that Storm at this point is no longer overrated. I think it's not even underrated. I think people correctly rate it as pretty bad, and it can be really fun. And yeah, if you get the Cabal Ritual, Dark Ritual, Lion's Eye Diamond, Yawgmoth's Will, Demonic Tutor, Tendrils deck, you probably will do well. If you have all those cards in your deck plus a decent supporting cast, that's powerful. You remove any two of those cards, your deck's unplayable. Like it's not a good strategy, and I think people know that. So I think Tinker is overrated. I have found that Tinker for Portal to Phyrexia is less likely to win than you would expect, and certainly less likely to win than I would deem acceptable for how much investment it takes and the picks it takes. I still have Tinker in my cube. I have no plans to remove it, but getting Portal, getting Krang now, getting Blightsteel, those all just don't win as much as you want them to based on, or considering that you have to put Tinker in your deck, you have to put artifacts in your deck, you have to put these in your deck. Sometimes you draw them and it's horrible. The one card I haven't mentioned so far, which is bizarrely not in the Arena Cube. I understand Storm sucks, but they could have put Bolas of Citadel in still, or kept it in. Because Tinker Citadel can still win. Like you can win with that one. I think that Green Ramp people have also similarly moved past. I kind of think the cube playing populace is largely pretty good at figuring this stuff out, or at least there's been enough time. So 5-6 years ago, if you asked people what mono green or green decks look like in Vintage Cube, people would talk about Craterhoof, Behemoth, and Raphaelos.
Yeah.
And even then, people were already rumblings of it not being as good, but that's what people thought about. Now, if you think of a good green deck, you think of Noble Hierarch into Sentinel of the Lost City into Questing Beast, and I think that's actually legit. I think that like the 5 most common decks I draft in Vintage Cube are like artifacts, like some kind of breach combo, Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze combo sort of deal when I can get it. That's kind of rare. Jeskai or 4-color, like mid-range control, like where you're just like good removal spells, good card draw, sort of things like that. Red-green beats actually is like easily in my top 5. If I open on Mana Crypt or Soul Ring or something like Minsc and Boo, obviously, I do look to be red-green and just have a curve that probably caps out around 4, sometimes with the like Titania Sylvan Safekeeper package. And you're just trying to beat them down. You're just trying to play Broadside Bombardiers into, Open-World Oddity or whatever, like combinations like that, Deathgreater Champion Gut with good green things and some elves. So you skip the 2-drop slot almost entirely in these decks. You're trying to go turn 1 elf, turn 2 3-drop, turn 3 4-drop. Or if you have a Mox or a Mana Crypt, you can kind of get started earlier. So I think that people are basically on the money about all these things. Reanimator fluctuates. Sometimes I think it sucks. Sometimes I think it's good. It just kind of depends on the cube or maybe how I'm feeling. I don't know. And overall, I would say the cube populace is generally pretty savvy.
Yeah, they have certainly gone that way, especially since the Arena Cube came out. Next question comes from Ken, who says, Marshall, best watch movie that gets the details of repairs and restoration correct.
Well, that's like asking, like your Rounders is actually pretty good about demonstrating real poker hands and stuff like that.
Yeah, and especially for its era, it was beyond excellent, and it holds up okay. But there really isn't one. I mean, there's no movies about repairing watches. It's not exactly
maybe there should be
hanging off the side of a building type stuff. But although I will say, having now done it myself, it does feel that way sometimes.
Hanging off the side of a building?
No, repairing watches. There are times where it feels that way. Because you're like, oh God, please don't let this part break, or, I don't want to drop anything or whatever. But there are some, it's interesting because there are some shows, so you have to recognize that in order for it to be interesting and correct, they would need to use real watches. And in order for real watches, like branded actual watches to show up on screen as such, they have to do a deal. And if you want to have 2 different brands of watches on the same movie that are both being highlighted, you need both brands to be okay with that. And a lot of them are like, how about we provide you with all of the watches, and then everybody that's wearing anything in your movie is wearing this. How does that sound? And leave that other guy out. And they usually end up going that route. That said, there's I don't know, Luis, if you've seen the show. I haven't, and I don't actually know the name of it, but it has John Hamm in it, and he plays some type of thief, and it's currently out. Is that?
I've probably seen previews for that, but
I think that meme where he's like dancing. I think it's from that show, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the meme. He's like the club looking kind of like faded.
Very, yeah. It's funny. The meme has a song on it that's not the one in the show. Somebody showed me the one from the show, and the one from the show is a song I really love, and it's by LCD Sound System, and I literally repaired the watch of the lead singer of LCD Sound System. I'm like, how did they take that song out? That song's so great for the meme. But anyway, that one apparently is good. I've heard rumblings in the watch community that they actually call out like specific models where they're like, he's going to steal this one or whatever, and they'll like name it, and that's pretty good. One of the funny ones, though, I don't know, this is maybe down the rabbit hole, but I mean, that's what our audience likes, right? Is when they get it wrong or are forced to. So one of the really interesting ones was, you know, the movie Wolf of Wall Street, Luis?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the crazy Leonardo DiCaprio film by Martin Scorsese. And, you know, it's about excess in Wall Street and theoretically about the downsides of it, though I think a lot of people watching it think that's kind of awesome. I want to do that.
Yeah, they did a lot of that. It felt like to me, but you know.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, this is bad, right, guys? Right? Guys, like you probably shouldn't live that way. But anyway, the main character's name's Jordan Belfort, based on a real person, and Leonardo plays him. And as he works his way up through Wall Street, of course, he gets nice suits and watches and all the luxury goods and stuff. And the watch that he would wear, that Jordan Belfort actually wore, is a gold Rolex, right? It's kind of the standard issue 80s Wall Street guy.
Rich dude watch.
Yeah, you know, it's the watch that, what's his name from Psycho? American Psycho, if you've ever seen that movie.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale plays, I can't remember his name, but
Patrick Bateman,
and he wears a gold, you know, it's that watch, right? Well, at the time, Leonardo had a brand deal with a different brand called Tag Heuer. And so he wouldn't wear a Rolex. Like his brand deal basically prohibited him from showing up even on screen wearing a Rolex. So he wore a gold Tag Heuer for the movie, which is not what people would have worn then. In fact, the brand didn't even exist yet.
Sure, yeah.
And in that form.
I think the filmmakers probably correctly sussed that people would not.
That they didn't know. And it basically just meant that they couldn't show that watch. It just was like, yeah, it's probably a Rolex, you know, whatever. And then in a kind of funny twist to the end, last year or the year before, Leonardo DiCaprio announced that he is now signed to Rolex. He's a Rolex ambassador now. So he turns out he could have done it the whole time. Next question comes from Ryan, who says, I was the one who had you sign. Oh yeah, Luis. I don't think I told you about this, but Paul and I, when we were in Vegas, they had this thing at the Magic Con where they had cats, like kittens.
Okay.
And they had this area blocked off, and you could just go play with the kittens. And it was there in partnership with like a local shelter. And so you could like go there the next day and get a cat if you lived in Vegas or whatever. And so we just Paul and I were just like, okay, I got to see this. Like, are there really just cats flying around, or like, what is the deal? So we went out of our hole, you know, behind backstage, and we were going, and Ryan found me and was like, hey, will you sign my card? I'm like, yeah, of course. Pulls out a Dak Faden.
The greatest thief in the multiverse?
Yeah, and I was like, oh God. I'm like, Luis is going to love this. But anyway, so Ryan says, I was the one who had you sign my Dak for my cube. Thanks again for making time on your way to the kittens. Yeah, I did tell him that's where I was going as well. I only realized that after I didn't get your signature on my Muldrotha or Booster Tutor, so I'll have to track you down at the next one. Absolutely, Ryan. You can find me and we'll do that. My questions are sort of related. Do either of you have anything you still enjoy signing more than others at cons, or stories of wacky things that people have had you sign or take a picture of? Also, how do you balance keeping sweet cards that you love in cube against them not being strong enough power-wise for the current environment? For example, this super cool Man of War that is a little weak for unpowered cube. So we'll start with that one, Luis. Do you have any nostalgia picks or special cards to you that you've had to pull out of the cube or that you refuse to?
Yeah, I mean, one right now that you're not going to like this either, that I know in my heart of hearts should be cut, but I haven't pulled the trigger. Is Fastbond. Fastbond is just not a playable card in Vintage Cube.
Bro, it's totally playable. It does all this cool stuff, combos, good with draw sevens.
Yeah, you know, you would think that, but I can tell you that in the Cube server, basically fastball never works, and
it's too hard.
I don't think is really going to change too much. Like,
that does make me sad. That really does.
I know. I knew you were going to be bummed.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Just it's okay.
Something I haven't yet. I have left it in the Cube, but I know that one is like on its way out.
I mean, do you still have Zurin Orb?
Well, yeah, but Zurin Orb is busted
because
it's good with Titania and Baloth Prime. So yeah, I think that's one that I was like pretty sad. So you don't like
infinite life and infinite mana combos. Okay, noted. Go on.
One that I was pretty sad to cut was when Riftwind Cloudskate and Mole Drifter and some of that stuff went. And that's why it's been fun playing the Retro Cube. I haven't played the Retro Cube for a bit, but it does those cards are still like kind of legit in that cube, which is cool. Oh man, I love Venser. Venser is really cool.
Like, such a good spot for that type of card. Do we have anything that we enjoy signing more than others or wacky stories? I mean, I love signing Manowar with the artwork that's actually behind me here. That is my all-time favorite card with my all-time favorite artwork. So that one I always love. I also love signing the original Manowar too, the other one. Either of those cards. Remember, what was the card that people always had you sign, Luis, back in the day? That stupid, what was it? It's like 2 and a black sorcery or something.
Oh, Gruesome Encore. Encore. That actually runs into a good story. I mean, most cards do, right? So yeah. This was before Pro Tour Paris. Pro Tour Paris was the one that Paul Rietzel won. Ben Stark won, beating Paul Rietzel in the finals. Rietzel beat me playing for top 8, actually. And this is the one where Team CFB, we had Stoneblade. We had the Stoneforge Mystic, Batterskull, Sword of Feast and Famine. Oh, Batterskull wasn't out yet, sorry. Stoneforge Mystic, Sword of Feast and Famine. Sylvok Lifestaff actually was featured in our deck.
And what's it called? The Bird Cock, whatever, right?
And then, Squadron Hawk, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Mana Leak, Spell Pierce.
That's one of the GOAT decks.
It is one of the GOAT decks, and one of the times when we were playing, it's just like felt like we were playing and
different game.
Just a completely different game.
Yeah, you guys were on a different level. Yeah.
So we planned to meet in San Diego because Gabe Walls, and I'll give you a little context on who that is. Gabe Walls is a former pro player. Like, pro is a loose term. He was kind of, he more hung out than like played, but he was like, got second at US Nationals. He had like, I think APT top 8, Grand Prix top 8, whatever. He was very good.
Extremely gifted gamer. Yeah.
Yeah. But Gables is a bit of a grifter, and he's actually deceased now, which is sad. I kind of had lost touch with him. His last couple years weren't great. He kind of, I don't know, just had a lot of things go poorly with a lot of different people.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, totally did. Yeah. So Gabe was like, "Hey, I'm house sitting a beach house in San Diego. Do you guys want to come?" And we're like, "And we can come test there, and it'll be great." And it's just like,
Gabe was the type of person that's like 50-50 that he's just squatting or the person doesn't know or, know.
So we all get there. So this is Team CFB. This is like me and Ifro and Kibler and Ben. Well, Bennis actually didn't go because he met us in Paris later. But, and like
Yuza was there?
Martin Yuza and Webb, and it's just like, Matt
Raptor,
Nass and and Raptor, like all the usual suspects, right? So we go, and on like the first day we get there, and it's just like gorgeous like beachfront mansion, and like is in San Diego. It was beautiful, it's huge, and we're like, yeah, this is incredible, dude. What's up with this place? And he's like, oh no, he's like, it's great. He's like, but if someone comes by, just tell them you're visiting for the day. I'm like, oh. Okay. I see.
Oh my God, dude. This is like making me uncomfortable just thinking about it.
Yeah. And we're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess so. No one ever came by. We never really found out what the deal was. That was Gabe. Like I've gotten a lot of good out of my interactions with Gabe in learning both from him and also from his actions, good and bad things. I don't know. He's an interesting guy.
Well, he's one of those people that the world was more interesting when he was in it. And,
Definitely.
And that
definitely.
comes with downside.
For those who are well versed in Magic lore, he was a little bit like Peter Seghetti, PTR, another like really old school player who actually is deceased now, and a lot of people didn't like and had a lot of bad interactions, but was also like a really just kind of out there dude, just a wild dude. You didn't never know what was going to happen, and he could be really funny. He could be really charming. Like all these things are not, they're often these kinds of people are actually in fact charming. And overall, like, I'm not going to argue that these guys did good things because they didn't, but also they made the world a more interesting place. That is just genuinely true.
I had a funny story about that. It's very short and it's not that interesting, but I did mean to tell it to you. I was just going to message it to you or whatever, but I can say here, kind of funny. One of the poker YouTube channels got a hold of all of the World Series of Poker footage from like the heyday, from like the Moneymaker and on type days. Yeah. And so when I've been editing, I've been having that up, and it's just been this total. I mean, I was super into poker at the time. I was very much I
spent a lot of my college years watching the World Series of Poker.
It was also just huge. It was like on ESPN, full on. Like it felt like a big event.
The two commentators, like Norm McLaren, Chad something or other.
Norman Chad and Lon McCarran. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah,
and they're kind of a goofy.
I still remember their voices. It was just so very soothing, the whole thing.
It really was. And so I just have kind of had that back on the background, and just so many names coming out of it. Oh, I wonder what happened to that person, looking up if they still play poker, and, people that I was a fan of and whatever. And sure enough, I have it on in, 2006 or whatever. And somebody's like, all right, cut over to this other table where Gabe Walls is all in. And he's there.
He was the chip leader after day one of the WSOP twice.
Right.
Or something like that.
And there he is, going all in against somebody. And it's just like, it's just crazy. The one funny, I have a bunch of them, but kind of the one that stands out to me about cards or things that I've signed is somebody literally had me sign a potato once. It was just like,
pretty good.
They're just like, will you sign my potato? And I'm like I didn't see the potato at the time, and I didn't know if I was being trolled or if I don't know. I was like, gonna need a little more information. And he pulled a potato out of his bag. He's like, will you sign it? And I'm like, absolutely. He did not laugh. Like, he didn't say like, I'm going to put this on Twitter or this is for the memes, or he was just like, thanks. Signed his potato, walked out the door.
Yeah, sure.
Luke says,
I didn't ever finish why Gruesome Encore was a thing.
Oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry. The Gruesome Encore to your Gruesome Encore story.
Right. And that's the whole thing. It's the dumbest joke in the world, but Gruesome Encore was in that draft format. And we started joking about this pack's just a gruesome encore of the last pack, and we started putting gruesome encores in packs, and it just evolved to there was just gruesome encores everywhere. People would always be saving them from the drafts and slipping them in
seats,
or you'd be like playing against someone in a draft right in the house, and if they weren't paying attention, you'd put a gruesome encore like third from the top of their deck or something. Yeah. So like in a turn or two, they would just draw a gruesome encore and just start to lose it, and it was really something. And,
you could pass somebody a pack that was just all gruesome encores and they look at it like, what the hell?
Yeah. So it was a running joke for a long time. And so getting back to testing, we at some point figured out that Stoneforge Mystic was a good card, and which is wild to say, but this was back a long time ago, long enough ago that people really just didn't find everything as well as they did now. And we very quickly were like, well, Stoneforge Mystic's busted, and we figured that out. And we figured out that you could just play Stoneforge Mystic in your deck and go get Sword of Feast and Famine, and then compare that with 4 Preordained, 4 Jace, 4 Mana Leak, 3 Spell Pierce, a couple Day of Judgments, some Path to Exiles, some Squadron Hawks. And it's like, I just named incredibly good cards. Every card I named was awesome.
Powerful cards for standard, yeah.
So we get to Paris, and Martin Yuza and Ben S meet us there because they didn't come to testing, because he's from Europe already. He wasn't going to fly to San Diego and fly back, and Ben because he's a terrible teammate and never showed up for testing, which I love Ben, but wow, what a bad teammate. Ben was on our team to run the limited meeting, and it kept progressively getting worse, where he just started not showing up for that either. At one point, he was in the hotel in his room and wouldn't come down for the limited meeting. Like, we kind of parted ways after that team-wise. It's just like, dude.
Yeah.
It was really something. But rough. We go there and we're talking to those guys, and Martin has this blue-black Tezzeret deck. And Ben is like, I don't know if I should play the Tezzeret deck or your guys' Stoneblade deck. And I'm like, Ben, Martin doesn't know if he wants Jace or Preordain or both or neither. just play the deck that plays all the good cards and not the one that's still trying to figure out whether you want these busted cards, because clearly you want all of them. The problem was the Tezzeret deck needed to play 4 Tezzerets and Sphere of the Suns and all these other things. So so then Ben does play it and then wins the PT, and that was that.
Yeah, that's great. The gruesome Encore deck. That's what you really missed out on. Luke says, can we have a brief synopsis of Luis's non-MTG career? I've been listening for a while, and I've heard mention of Channel Fireball, Direwolf, Get Lucky Games or something like that, and plenty of games, yeah. And plenty of freelance work. Hope all is well. Thanks to you both for the great content. That is kind of interesting, right? If somebody's been listening for, say, 5 or 6 years, which is a long time, to listen to a podcast, they will have not really got a clean
Especially
view.
One of this quality.
Yeah. They will have not gotten a really clean view on, because you have a non-traditional career. So could you kind of string together what that looks like?
I mean, I've always said that I never played Pro Magic without having like content as in some other job as part of kind of what I was doing. And that started with adventureson.com, blackborder.com. They're kind of the same thing. If anyone remembers that old website, I used to wear those like honestly kind of god awful shirts. They were not.
I remember them.
The logo just wasn't very noticeable or big, so it was just like they just didn't look good. But
CFB's branding was slightly better.
Yeah. But much love to Abram Hughes, the owner of Adventures On. He gave me my first shot. Me and Paul actually, and so like I still talk to him, and I'm always happy to give him a shout out, just because like it really was super important to where we were at that point. And I started doing content there, and then I started kind of playing Pro Magic, and then at some point I left Adventures On to start working at Channel Fireball, right? Really to help found Channel Fireball. I got brought on as a co-founder. Like we're like, hey, we're going to launch this thing. Are you in? Mm-hmm. And I was in fact in, and kind of simultaneously, I ended up in like 2012 getting a job with Direwolf here in Denver. So I moved to Denver, and I'm still here. Mm-hmm. And that was my entry into game design, and game design is awesome. Like I'm really happy that I went that direction. And after leaving Direwolf, after being there for almost 10 years, something like that, I did work with Matt Place and Matt Nass and Raptor at Good Luck Games. We worked on Storybook Brawl until that unfortunately imploded.
You mean Get Lucky Games?
And now I work for eBay because TCG Player bought Channel Fireball and eBay bought TCG Player, and I work for eBay. I'm an eBay employee. It's great. I actually, it's the biggest company I've ever worked for. I worked for all like small business or small to medium sized companies, or even startups. Like Channel Fireball, in a sense, was a startup at one point, right? Like it was starting to put that together.
Yeah,
and founding it. So it's been kind of cool getting the experience of working for a big company. Very different in a lot of ways, for sure. You've worked for big companies. You worked for AT&T for it was a long time. What's 5-6 years, something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that I've had a kind of long and winding path, but I've been pretty happy with it.
Yeah. And then that's the non-magic, and then he has all of his magic stuff, oftentimes simultaneous. Luis works his butt off. He's very efficient at it, but he always has a lot of irons in the fire at any given time. Next one comes from Greg, who says, I've recently got into rotisserie drafting, and it's my favorite format, bar none. How would you expect the first few rounds of Vintage Cube Roto to play out? Say Seat 1 takes Lotus, they can guarantee Brain Freeze and Underworld Breach with their second and third round picks, unless the player in Seat 2 takes Freeze to put the Lotus player off the combo. I'm sure you have thoughts, and I'd love to hear them. Thanks for the great show.
Oh, I have more than thoughts. We went through a phase, but like last year, where me and the guys, if you watch my videos, Mark Blackwind, who shows up in a lot of the videos, me, him, Mac, BK Troll, like a bunch of the folks who play Cube Online, Retired Devil, all those guys. We did probably like 10 vintage rotos until we kind of figure out what was going on, and then once the draft started feeling like a little bit similar, we ended up just finding other things to do. But I can tell you very, very concisely kind of what the main things are. And if you're doing a roto, I actually have some interesting strategies for you. The first thing is Black Lotus was basically always the first pick. Black Lotus is a broken card. And the other thing is, when you first pick Black Lotus, you are almost guaranteed to be able to just take on your second pick Lion's Eye Diamond and like Underworld Breach, and people won't contest you for that. And you end up in a spot where you basically have that combo available to you, and it's really, really strong. The next pick is often Time Vault, Time Walk, or Ancestral Recall. Though over the course of our drafts, Ancestral Recall won the most of any card.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it's because the Ancestral Recall seat very frequently ended up getting to take like Force of Will a lot of the time would come back, because you start, right, there's 8 people and all 8 make a pick, and then pick 8 makes a second pick and it snakes back around. Well, like if you're in the middle there, like let's say that goes like Lotus, Time Walk, Time Vault, and you take Ancestral 4th, the next bunch of picks are mostly going to be Moxes. You have a pretty good chance of getting Force of Will back.
Yeah.
And Force of Will is incredible. So
totally. And, there's the basic premise of just if everybody has a bunch of really great cards. I mean, there's not that many great, like the cards stay very high quality for quite a while in a roto draft, that if you get to draw more of them, you have a good chance to win. I mean, it's a simple premise, but.
So the deck, like Raja won one, Raja Suleiman won one, I won one, and I think Mac won one, all with like Ancestral, Force of Will, blue mid-range decks. That's a good strategy. Time Vault is a great strategy with Voltaic. If you banned Time Vault, then, do something else instead, I suppose. And one of the other picks, Mac actually kind of pioneered this early staking the claim, and it totally worked. He just he was third. It went like Lotus, Time Walk. He just took Tolarian Academy. And if you think about it, it's actually great because you usually get a Mox back still. You could take a Mox and hope to see what you get back on the wheel, or you could just take Academy. And one of the particular quirks of Roto is there's not that many incentives to actually like hate draft.
Right.
Because you're playing against a bunch of other people. So what ended up happening is when you take Academy, no one else is taking Candelabra of Tawnos from you.
Right.
Or even Mishra's Workshop. You can float those pretty late. When you take Lotus and Lion's Eye Diamond, you could just not take Underworld Breach for a while. Though it ended up being a kind of funny spot where we're like, okay, well, how long do you have to take Demonic Consultation after you take Thassa's Oracle?
Yeah, because somebody will at some point, right?
Because it's like, people were getting kind of mad when someone hate drafted, and it's like, well, hate drafting is definitely part of this. It's a the whole thing is very funny. What ended up happening basically is we near the kind of the end of our like Roto careers, as it were, we kind of said like, hey, if basically after the first like 12 rounds of picks or 8 rounds of picks, I don't remember the number, hate drafting is legit. You can just hate draft if you want. And that's basically a warning that like, hey, if you're trying to assemble a combo, finish the combo. It's time to do that,
Yeah. And technically anybody could hate draft whenever, right?
Yeah, technically anyone could hate draft whenever, but
I mean, the incentives don't line up for them to do it anyway, right? Like
the incentives don't line up, and it's like
out to snipe.
We're trying to have a good time here. It's kind of aggressive. If imagine you first pick Time Vault, pick one, pack one, and I'm on the wheel and I just take Voltaic Key and Manifold Key.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm tanking my draft, but I'm also taking your draft.
Right,
that's not great.
But it doesn't make sense for you to do that if there's anything on the line.
No, which is why we eventually were like, okay, yeah, this isn't how we.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that it's sort of already set up for you to not do that, right?
Yes, I agree.
Like even if you were allowed to.
But also at some point in the draft, it becomes a good strategy to hate your opponent's demonic consultation, because it's like,
you can't just get away with it forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So,
well, you can, but none of us. Yeah. We had Seattle vintage rotisserie cubes for a while. We did them on a spreadsheet. Like, did you do them in person? Was everybody in the same Discord thing or room or whatever when we
had a Google spreadsheet. Martel,
that's what we did.
Martel found a nice one, or Mac found it. Sorry, Martel was going to fix it and then never did. That's what he said. And which you would is what you would expect. And the way it worked is, and actually I could share a link to a copy in the show notes for you, because it's really cool. If you're going to do a rotisserie, it's great. You put in the people, you put in the card pool in the separate tabs, and then whenever you fill out a card, it auto-fills the card, first of all, but also it shows you if someone tries to take a card that's already been taken, it flashes red. You can look at the card list, the current card list, and scroll down and see what's been taken. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff that made the whole experience better. And we did it like somewhat slowly, where it wasn't like it wasn't live, where like, okay, we started the draft, Marshall, you've got to take you've got to take the card.
Like, did you take like a week
in the next 10 minutes.
something to do it? Or
we tried to get it done within about a week.
Yeah, that's what we did too.
Basically, what we would find is we would launch it. We tried to coordinate with everyone to launch on a day where everyone had a couple hours to like get a good start in, with the understanding that sometimes someone has to go take care of a kid or do whatever, any number of things. And then during the week, we would kind of like, sometimes you'd hurry someone along and you're like, it's like, yo, Adam, you're the pick's on you. We're waiting. Or what you would do is I would send you, like I would make my pick and then I would send you, Marshall, here's my next 2 picks. Just put those in when they're there. Or I'd send you 3 or 4 cards. If any of these are taken, just go down the list in order. These are the next 4 cards I want.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to smooth it. Yeah,
Roto's really fun. We had a really fun time doing it.
Really fun.
The only reason we stopped was because we had done it enough that we felt like, okay, yeah, we kind of figured it out.
Yeah. The one we did was like a Seattle. Like I think Randy might have put it together. He was definitely in it.
It seems like the sort of thing he'd be into.
Yeah, he's good at organizing stuff like that. And like B Wong was in there. I think Charles Wong was in it. Laux, Zanebeg. Like it was really fun. And then we all got together after we did that week thing and we played it out with like computers and stuff on Magic Online and it was really,
that's how we also played everything out on Magic.
Yeah,
Online.
it's really fun. Like, cause it just gives you this, like, it's fun to check the spreadsheet and see what happened since the last time, like who picked what. And like, yeah, did somebody cut somebody off color wise or even snipe a card from them? At what point does that start to come into play? Is somebody trying to float a combo piece just a little too long for Randy's liking or whatever, and they take it, on a spot where they're not giving up much, or that, they don't feel like they're going to get any retaliation. A lot of really neat stuff. The funny part is that it's kind of like how I imagine Commander to be a little bit, which is like, it's really fun to build a deck, but actually playing it is like, okay, it's more about hanging out with people and stuff. That's kind of how that felt. Like the logistics around actually playing it out were actually kind of cumbersome, getting the decks together on Moto and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think less so the logistics being cumbersome because we all have been cubing so much that we either had all the cards or had a rental account and could rent them. Right. But I would say overall, like it was just a blast. The format doesn't change, so that is part of why we kind of stopped doing it. Like. Yeah. Though we talked recently about getting another one together, I bet people would be in. I think overall the best decks to draft, slam Academy early and you suck up all the artifacts and just draft the really sweet looking Academy deck. Some non-obvious cards that you might want to take really early in Academy, because here's the thing, you don't have to take most of the like non-busted artifacts early, like Mana Vault, Grim Monolith, obviously Moxes. Sure, those are early picks. Balance is one of the earliest picks I think you should take in Academy. Mana Drain's fantastic in Academy. And then you can pick up all the other stuff later. The other thing is take lands really highly. It's funny when runs start happening on a card. The first time someone takes a fetch land, everyone starts grabbing fetch lands.
They just go right down the line. Yeah,
I'm going to lose all my fetch lands, And I think that you want to make sure that you're able to, of course, play all your cards. I also so the other decks that were good was like a white-red, like fast mana initiative deck with like White Plume Adventure, Caves of Chaos Adventure sort of cards. And the way you got into this, if you take Mana Crypt or Soul Ring or any of the like really early, really busted acceleration cards, and you want like, besides like obviously Mox, Ruby, or Pearl, like City of Traders, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You're just trying to play something early and just have it pop off. There was like the Ancestral Force Control deck. There's the Brain Freeze Breach LED, Auriok Salvagers, Omega combo deck that uses Lotus, sometimes Yogg will. There's Time Vault Key, like that can go in whatever deck you want, which is actually pretty nice. There's what are some of the other archetypes people played? There's like Flash Sneak stuff, and that's kind of nice because you don't have much competition when you're doing those things. So like once you start taking big creatures, there's usually just one big creature deck. Sometimes there's two. Sometimes there's like a Flash combo deck and a Sneak deck. There's Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle if you're into that sort of thing. Overall, it was a fun, somewhat replayable format. I would say.
The thing that I really liked about it was when people would kind of plant their flag, because generally people take like generically good cards like Moxen and card draw and the stuff that Luis was talking about. But then it's like somebody goes, okay, I'm taking Academy. And you're like, all right, you're going to try to be the artifacts deck. And then somebody's like, they take Entomb or Reanimate or so. It's like, okay, I get it. Like, I see where you're going with this, And then the interesting part to me was like, if you fast forward like maybe 3 or 4 picks from there, where people start to take cards that overlap with other archetypes rather than just trying to outright snipe important cards from people. It was more like, what could I take that they may have their eye on that I'm damaging them, but it goes in my deck as well. And then you also get to see, where do people value all the different types of cards? Like, where, what's your number one cantrip, right? Like, is somebody taking Ponder, Preordain, or something for free or whatever first, right? What are your best counter spells? Like, usually Force of Will is the kind of go-to, and then it's like Mana Drain, and then it's like, well, are people taking other ones, like do they take straight up counterspell? If so, when is Spell Pierce on their list? Is Daze on their list? That kind of stuff gets really interesting, because it's like you can really see how people really think about the cube and what they really value based on that, because they could pick any of those and they have to choose the one they want for that deck. And I always thought that was a look you don't normally get.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting parts of the draft are the first like 2 rounds, where people are laying the groundwork both in taking the busted cards, but also, like you said, taking the cards like Time Vault, Tolarian Academy, Underworld Breach, or whatever direction they want to steer. And then the next part that's really exciting is like, once that's gone and people have taken the first couple rounds of like their deck cards, what are people fighting over? And also, as we got a little better at this, I would say the first 3 of these were really fun. The next couple were a little bit kind of business as usual. And then people started trying new things, and those are really fun. And then we kind of stopped. But once people realize, like, when you take Flash, you don't need to just take like Torsten next pick, or let's say you've taken Flash and Mystical Tutor, Mox Sapphire, Mana Drain, whatever. You don't need to then take Torsten. You then need to take Flooded Strand or Spell Pierce. You need to take the cards other people want. So everyone is what you wanted to do. It's really funny. Take the minimum amount of cards to demonstrate which archetype you are, so other people don't go into that. Tolarian Academy is actually the best possible example. It's one pick. Everyone kind of stays away from the 30 cards you really want. But then you have to take the cards that are most contested. And you have to balance that, because if you wait too long, like let's say you take Flash, then you take no other cards, someone might on the wheel go, okay, well, I'm just going to take Sneak Through the Breach, and now I'm going to go this direction.
Right, and now they actually have that archetype. They actually have a stronger claim to it than you at that point. Yeah, definitely try out Roto if you can get the logistics together. It's cumbersome, but
Magic
it's really
Online makes it so much easier. And the rental services, Mana Traders or Goatbots or whatever, Card Hoarder, whatever you use, like it really goes a long way.
Next question comes from Jeremy, who says, hey guys, I hope you're doing great. It's ironic that you're doing a Q&A episode this week, because just this morning I thought of a question for you, Marshall. All right. I was wondering how you do your preparation for coverage, particularly with the constructed formats. Do you build decks and jam a bunch of games? Do you collaborate with your colleagues? It seems that Corey is particularly good at breaking down a lot of the lines for the decks. And then Jeremy has another question. LSV, I've been enjoying your draft videos lately. Have you ever considered doing a compilation style? I think compilation is what he was going for. A compilation style video where you played highlights from some of your favorite drafts. Also, what are your top 5 favorite constructed decks that you've ever played? Thanks for everything. Keep up the great work. So the answer to your question for me, Jeremy, is I'm responsible to know 2 things, right? I have to know limited and I have to know constructed. And this is very difficult, especially now. For example, for Secrets of Strixhaven, the set came out on Tuesday on Arena, and, in that way. So then if we fast forward 1 week, it's the next Tuesday. So I've had the set in my hands for a week. I fly Wednesday. We have rehearsals on Thursday, and Friday morning, I'm in the booth with Paul, like calling a draft. So I have to absorb a lot in that relatively short time frame about not only what's good, what's not, but also card names and what the cards do. Like I'm commentating live Magic. Like I have to know if you cast this, that it only hits things with, power 3 or greater or whatever. And if I don't, I have to look it up in the booth, or I have to kind of look at Paul and go 3 or greater, and that is a ton of information to take in. So my approach is I focus on limited. And the reason for that is the schedule that Paul and I have for Friday for day 1 is we do the draft, we do a round of limited. So we do round 1, and then we're off one, and then we do another draft of limited. So it's draft and 2 rounds of limited, and then we do 2 rounds of constructed later in the day. And so for me, I feel the full weight of authority for the limited part, and that's what I focus on. When I get there is when I start asking people about constructed. Also because the dust hasn't really settled. The sets are, very new. And by the time I'm there, we'll actually have the metagame. Like, we don't publish it ahead of time, but we'll actually know what decks are there. So now I can start to focus in, okay, what is this deck trying to do? What cards is it using? How does its strategy work? What are its matchups? And we have a great team for that. I mean, Paul knows his stuff, Monty, Corey, and we also have Frank Karsten on site, and he is unbelievable. For example, when we get to Top 8 Sunday, he will do a write-up of each of the quarterfinal matches before I even get to the site. So he'll say, this player's playing this deck, this player's playing this deck, here's what matters, basically. And then he'll break down how sideboard plans go and if things change after that. And then he'll also call out any interesting or not that common or maybe unintuitive card interactions. Just be like, this person basically can't play this card because the other person has 5 answers for it or whatever. So they're just going to take it out even though it's a good card, something like that. And then he'll do that for the semis and the finals. And so I'm like a sponge when I get to those meetings, because basically I feel like I've been sprinting to understand limited, and now it's time to soak up as much as I can about constructed before I get in. But I do not jam games of constructed at this point. The timeline's just too short. If I was spending time doing that and then it ended up being a deck that it wasn't even popular at the format, it would be at the tournament, it would be a complete waste for me. So I have to, I honestly, I feel like I'm behind even just getting there on limited. Like, I do probably 25 or 30 drafts by the time I show up, and I'd like to do even more than that. Like, I like to sit down really comfortable, and I sit down kind of going, okay, I made it across the line. Now it's time to actually commentate these things. So that's how I approach it, but it's mostly out of necessity. Have you considered doing a compilation video, Luis, of your favorite drafts?
I have done at the end of the year, because I try to take a little more time off in December, and when the kids are home for like 2 weeks, it's also a lot harder to record. Mm-hmm. I will do like, here's my top 5 best like Lotus decks, or here's my top 5 best Luris decks or Academy decks, that sort of thing. I haven't done the high effort, like here's a clip show. That's something I have an editor, but I would need to either go in or have someone else go in and find all the clips. And that's pretty time intensive.
Because that's the editor side of like actually making the content, like what's good here, right? Right.
And what's funny is that for a lot of people, or a lot of like this type of, thing, compilation videos can be a really great way to use stuff you've already done. Mm-hmm. Like, you go back and you stitch together a bunch of content you've already made. So it's actually like way cheaper, right? For me, I can just sit down and make new content. And it takes me, not much more time than time it takes me to sit down and do it. There's not that much, like, I'm pretty efficient at this point. Like, honestly, you want to know my setup?
Yeah.
I'm set up to record a team draft, right? Like a 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. I will do that. I'll do the draft portion. I'll then have another video that's either like an arena video or a Magic Online video, or if I'm doing like something like Slay the Spire or Once Upon a Galaxy, I can stop and start whenever I want. And whenever I have downtime in the 3-on-3, I'll just switch to which video I'm recording. So at the end of it, I'll have 2 videos in the time it could have taken me to record one if I just kind of let that time be fallow in the middle.
Dude, that's nuts.
Well, I think
that is just efficiency right there. Yeah.
It is just, I just don't have time to waste. I'm trying to, get everything together, and I think that it's important to try to use my time well if I'm going to do that.
Do you have any favorite constructed decks that you played? Like, what jumps to mind when you think of that?
I think that my favorite constructed decks that I've played, the Stoneforge deck was really good. The one we had in Paris, it was pretty nice getting to play that deck. I think that Elves was fun because it was just like a busted deck when I played Elves in Berlin, and the top 8 was 6 elf decks or whatever. The decks that I've loved, I love the Teachings deck. for Grand Prix San Jose, or San Francisco, which was in downtown San Jose, me, Chion, Paulo, Vitor Damarosa, and Webb, David Ochoa all played this deck. We spent all week testing, and 3 of the 4 of us made top 8. That was
what
awesome.
Deck was that?
Mystical Teachings in Time Spiral Block Constructed. We broke the mirror by going Teachings for Teferi, flashback Teachings for Detritivore, blow up all your lands. Sounds ridiculous, but
I missed that.
Yeah.
That sounds way cooler than the stuff we do.
A little before your time, yeah.
It was, yeah. That's awesome.
And I will say I really did like playing fairies once I really got into it. As fairies in Lauren era standard, this is back on 2-year rotation, which I missed, by the way. The first year fairies was out, I tried to play every deck that beat fairies. None of them did. I lost all year. Second year, I just switched to playing fairies, and I top 8 at a Grand Prix and felt really smart. I was like, I should just been playing this deck. Well, I actually felt dumb for not playing it earlier. So that was one of the decks I really liked too.
Yeah, that's a classic.
I think my favorite deck of all time, though, is the deck that me and Paul and Webb, this is our team back then, played at Nationals in 2007. This is the Nationals that I won with Arcanus the Omnipotent and Court of Calling. What a wild deck. It was a ridiculous deck.
Like Flare?
Omnichord is what we called it.
Omnichord. Oh, yeah.
It was something.
Yeah, that is a relic at this point, right? You just cannot make decks like that. Next question comes from Kevin, who says, "Hey, Marshall LSV. As I've been listening to the set reviews, I've started to try to guess the grade of the card before your take and compare it to how close I am. I'm getting better in terms of alignment, but there are sometimes cards I completely whiff on. I don't have a specific card in mind, but I seem to have a hard time evaluating combat tricks and non-creature spells. Is there a common heuristic I'm just lacking, or is it completely context/set dependent? Another example I can think of is a burglar rat type card. I've noticed that it can be great in certain sets while mediocre in others. Is it just entirely set or context dependent? Thanks for the insight."
I don't know about entirely, but I would say largely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is likely to.
Yeah, you're getting a
be
guess
the main difference
of how these cards traditionally perform in what you would call like the average set, mixed with what we know about the set that's upcoming. That's kind of what we're basing it on. I think it's interesting for I wonder if Kevin is overrating the combat tricks and non-creature spells. I think that's a common problem, right? Combat tricks can be fine, but they're capped because they're just combat tricks. There's only so many that you can put in a deck, and there's usually more of them in the draft than are needed to fill the slots there. So they're not high demand from the beginning, and there's too many of them out there, relative to the demand. So we usually give them a lower grade, than maybe what the raw power level or how good it is compared to other combat tricks might suggest. And non-creature spells suffer the same thing. How many can you put in? How many pure card draw spells, life gain spells, artifacts that do things can you put into your deck? It turns out it's not that many. They have to be pretty special, and your deck has to really want something like that for it to be right. And so we kind of have that baked in heuristically in our minds. And I think that's why you see those, start off a little lower than maybe the power level. You might think this is a really good card draw spell. And we might say, well, you just don't need that many card draw spells, or there's a lot of those, or there's only a couple decks that really want cards like that, And so that could be if there is a gap. I don't know which direction Kevin's going up and down, but those are common misconceptions about those type of cards.
Yeah, I think that ultimately context really is the reason cards are better or worse. I would say on balance, there's certain types of cards which you can usually bet on. The burglar rat type card is a pretty safe bet. I would say it ranges from solid to great. It typically is not bad. So there are some times when it's kind of bad, and I guess Virus Beetle was probably its peak because it was an artifact. There was ninjas, there was a lot of things going on there.
Right.
But there's not that many formats where it's actively bad. Whereas the 1 mana combat tricks that do a +2/+2 plus a trinket text, those range from bad to playable, and that's generally the range they're in. And then now you can look at patterns like the 3 in a blue, put a creature on the top or bottom sort of card. Sometimes it costs a little less, run behind or whatever, and sometimes does XYZ. These are cards that are always good. they range from like good to like, I would say great, just about.
Yeah, they could be the best blue common.
Yeah, that sometimes is the case, but for the most part, like we have a good sense of these, and that's one of the things you get when they have the kind of like set skeleton that they stick to pretty strongly. We just see these cards every time, so at this point, we have a pretty decent kind of understanding of them.
Yeah, so that's hopefully that helps, Kevin. Next one is from our friend Zygmunt Auflöser. This is when my friends and I first started playing Magic, we had a warped impression of which cards were powerful. This is because we only had access to a limited and inexpensive group of cards, and we were purely casual players. For example, Scaled Worm, Fireball, and Dark Banishing were powerhouses to us. Do either of you have fond memories of playing terrible cards because they were the best you could find back in the day? Any fun stories you can share? Thanks for answering my question and for continuing to create fantastic and engaging content each week. Thank you, Zygmunt. I mean, yeah, dude, I have tons of those. I mean, remember, I don't know if these cards have a name, Luis, but there was like, the Force of Nature, Lord of the Pit kind of cycle.
Yeah, that cycle.
Yeah, I don't know if they were like meant to be sort of pinnacles of their color, but they were the big, scary, Shivan Dragon ones that really stood out. And I mean, I was 100% in on those. Like I thought Force of Nature was like the coolest thing ever.
It was one of my favorite cards from when I first started playing. It's so
have
cool.
you seen his biceps? Like you're not messing with that guy, right? Like,
no.
So yeah, those type of cards I loved. I mean, I think I was probably pretty typical for for new Magic player where like I didn't really understand yet the stuff that was actually good. Which is almost everybody. I mean, the classic story is trading like a Mox for a Crawworm or whatever, right? Because you're like, well, this is just a stupid land. Who cares? It's like a land, but this Crawworm can beat you down or whatever. I think I was more or less in that. I've mentioned it before on the show, but I also, after I got some cards, I wasn't actually playing games very often against anybody. Like I'd play against Jay and that was about it. And he'd always just kick my butt. But I like to build, try to build combo decks.
Is that your buddy Jay?
My buddy Jay. Yeah. And he was actually good at Magic, so it was kind of unfair. But yeah, and I had, these contrived, snake basket, nonsense decks or whatever. So I had a bunch of stuff like that too. What about you? Any bad cards from back in the day?
Well,
were you the Crawworm person?
Yeah, I remember Craw Giant actually
dude,
was in
with Rampage, dude.
Yeah,
I was a big Craw Giant guy too.
It was from Legends. It was like 3 green for like a 6/4 trample Rampage 2, which is like if for every creature that blocks it past the first one, it gets +2/+2.
Dude, I thought that was really good.
Legends has 2 of the like bottom 5 keywords of all time. Bands with others, which no, not banding.
Oh,
bands with others.
Bands with
That's
others.
not the same thing.
Okay.
Banding is one of the worst mechanics of all time. That was an alpha. Legends introduced bands with others, which was banding. You could only band with other creatures of the exact same type.
Oh God. That's bad. That is somehow worse.
Really bad. It's just really, really atrocious, honestly.
Remember the first Planeswalker in Legends?
The first Planeswalker?
Yeah.
What's the first Planeswalker?
I don't remember what it's called, but it has Planeswalk.
Oh, you're talking about Righteous Avenger.
Yeah, it literally can't be blocked.
It's funny because it was the first plane. It was 4 and a white for a 3/1 Planeswalk, and then there was the Great Wall, which was 3 and a white enchantment. All creatures lose Planeswalk. Those were the only cards that had the word Planeswalk on it at the time.
And isn't the Great Wall not a wall?
No, it says enchantment.
Yeah. Yeah. This was part of the charm of, the first few sets of Magic that came out.
Yeah, there's some variance there as to what you would get for sure.
For sure. Let's see. This is Tice who says, hello to both of you. Luis, what's something you love about each of your children? Wow. For both of you, what's something that you love about your mothers? The second question was originally for Marshall since he talks about his mother occasionally, but Mother's Day was last weekend, so you both get to answer.
Well, I've got some children. So my oldest, what I love about her is really just how interested she is in like learning new things and figuring things out, and she can be kind of a perfectionist, which is good and bad for sure. Mm-hmm. And watching her apply that to something like Stardew Valley, it's a video game that she really loves, and she just like trying to optimize and trying to figure out and try to plan ahead. I think video games are great, honestly. Like, look, the kids have limits on what they can play and when they can play and all that stuff. It's not like free for all. But honestly, I would choose a kid playing a video game like Stardew Valley or Magic or any game that requires thinking, which is basically all the video games. They require thinking over just like watching TV. And especially like just watching like YouTube or something. I don't know. I think that I'm a little scared of the algorithm. They're optimized to turn adults and children's alake's brain into slop.
They turn ours into it. I can't imagine an untrained child's brain.
Yes, exactly. But I just love how voraciously she consumes that kind of content and figures out the best way to interact with it. My oldest son, it's awesome seeing how passionate he gets about things, and he usually has like something he's super into, which that's a trait he shares with me. I wouldn't go so far as to say special interest, but we can tunnel pretty deeply.
We go deep,
in this case, Magic the Gathering was mine for sure. But when he was younger, he was really into balls and basketball, and we would go shoot hoops at the like local park. This is when he was like 2 years old.
Can he dunk?
Every day? Every single day. Well, if the hoops are the right size, he can. Yeah. But then he moved on to being really into planes, and you do not know how much I know about planes at this point. Like, for example, the SR-71 Blackbird, one of the coolest planes ever, is at 2,000 miles per hour, roughly top speed. Whereas like an F-15, that's about 1,400 miles per hour.
And he's educating you on this stuff.
Yeah, and like one of the fastest planes ever made was like the X-1 experimental plane that went about 4,500 miles per hour, but not for very long. And then you have like the slower planes like the B-2 bomber. And did you know B is for bomber, C is for cargo, F is for fighter. So like that's why it's like F, C, and B. And
wow.
We literally have a plane book that's like an encyclopedia of planes. It's not a kid's book. It's a book we got at the kind of Air and Space Museum here. They have an excellent one, actually 2 locations, Wings Over the Rockies. We got the squadron membership. It entitles us to bring up to 6 people without paying. Oh. We use it frequently. And we got an encyclopedia. It's like this dense encyclopedia that is just planes, schematics of planes and all the information about them. And literally that's what I would read to him. He's 3 years old. We're reading this.
Dude,
now he's
I
almost 5.
I was exactly like that, by the way, except for it was about dinosaurs, insects, and space.
Right? Oh, yeah. Dinosaurs are another classic one, right?
Yeah.
And then the twins who are younger, the boy, he takes after our older son and actually really loves balls. He's in his ball era right now. It's so cool seeing that. And, without going too deep into it, I'm not a scientist, not an expert. I will say, having now been in the process of raising 2 boys and 2 girls, and the boys have some similarities and the girls have some similarities. Yeah. And, I think that there are,
everybody I know that has kids
there are
different.
Yeah. There are differences between the genders when it comes to the things they're interested in, and how the boys tunnel so much more. At least mine have. They both tunnel so much more on the thing they're interested in than the girls. The girls have a more wide-ranging interest. And then the youngest girl twin, I love how passionate she is. You can see her visibly like get excited about things, and what she's so excited about is animals. She loves our dog. She loves our chinchilla. She's actually like, we always have to be watching her with the dog because she just like jump on the dog and grab it, and she's not great with it. But Julie's a saint. Julie is now, she's lived through 4 kids at this point, and they've all gone through their fur pulling, put my body weight all on top of you, grab your mouth, grab the thing you're eating. Like, we try to teach the kids not to, of course. We're very, actually, I think our older kids are incredibly good at interacting with strangers' dogs. They know to ask, they know how to approach, they know not to just go up and do things, they know how to be gentle. Julie's the one who taught them all that, but she has done so with good survival instinct. The worst thing she could do for her position is to be bad with kids, and she's not. And so that is really great. As for my mom, I love how much my mom, it can be tough because me and her, we can argue about this sometimes, but I love how much she tries to go for what she wants and tries things like she does. Like, she'll move to a new place, or she'll give away a bunch of her stuff to go like downsize and live in like yurt and stuff. Like, she just like a lot of kind of like, my mom is very much like a kind of hippie in spirit, and it has been cool seeing her kind of like spread her wings and do all the things she kind of wanted to do when she was raising us and just like didn't, and now kind of gets the opportunity to, and I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, my mom. It's funny. Our moms are actually kind of similar people. I've got a chance to meet Luis's mom, And she reminds me of my mom. And I'm not that shocked because Luis and I are similar people too. But yeah, my mom is interesting in that she's like, it's funny looking back at when I was younger because she just supported me like no matter what. And I'm looking back and I'm like, why did you, like, you're crazy for letting me do some of the ideas. You know, I was traveling to Europe and I, you know, just doing all this, you know, life stuff. And she has just literally always had my back on everything. It's weird as I've gotten older to look back and think, if I had a kid now that was that age, what would I say to him? And I'm like, I would say, hell no. Like, what are you doing? And my mom, you know, never did that, ever. And I think that it worked out because like I had like a head on my shoulders and I could like, I wasn't like reckless or whatever, but I think her and I are both glad for that because she just gave me the green light on everything, basically. I don't actually know the answer to this question, Luis. So this is also from Ken from before. Any suggestions on coaches I can hire for draft?
I don't really know who's offering.
I don't either.
At the moment.
I mean, like Ben used to, and he's excellent. I don't know. I don't know what that scene looks like at the moment.
I mean, it seems to me that MetaFi is where people are kind of congregating at this point. So
if Ben Stark's doing it, I would recommend it. He takes it seriously. He does show up for those. I've seen him do it. And he's, of course, extremely knowledgeable. You just have to tell him exactly what you want to get out of it. You have to get Ben pointed in a direction, and then he can do the thing. Peter says, I haven't heard you talking about the Seahawks yet. How was the Super Bowl for you? Well, it was awesome. For those that don't follow football, the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl. The coolest moment, though, was not too far from where I live. They had the parade, the celebration parade, and I went down there and cheered at everybody as they walked by and everything. And it was a good moment, a really special, you know, thing for the city. So yeah, that was great. John says, longtime listener. Holy smokes. Since episode 2.
What was wrong with episode 1?
Yeah. What happened to episode 1, John? You're a little late, buddy. Seriously though, that was like so long ago. Longtime listener, first time caller. Mauro recently did a reflection on his podcast about how Magic designed a development over his 30 plus years at WotC and how his approach to design has evolved over the years with those changes. Marshall, what areas do you think have changed both limited resources and Magic design over your time since you started? And how do you see that your technique or approach have evolved over time? I guess the same question to Luis, though he's only been doing it for about half as long as the GOAT of LR.
That's, first of all, not true.
That is funny. Yeah, that's
LR started in like 2011, right? 2009?
Yeah.
Okay, so you did LR for 5 years before I got there, and we've been doing it for 12 years.
I was going to say, Luis has been here for longer than you think, John. Yeah, so it's interesting because it does feel quite a bit different. The design part feels more codified to me. It feels like the differences between sets aren't as big, but also the consistency is better. I like that, as it turns out. I do miss having a random Rise of the Eldrazi thrown in there for some totally different look at how they do it. But that being said, I really appreciate the consistency. Like now it really stands out when we get a bad set, where before it was like, yeah, this one's not so great. The scheduling feels way different. There's just so many more sets. It does feel, as a limited player, like we're being bombarded, which I think is not quite as good. But I also don't hate when a new set's coming around the corner. I think that's pretty cool. I think I know a lot more about a set a lot quicker. The whole entire timeline feels compressed, so that feels different. Those are the things that like viscerally feel different. I mean, power creep is there. The cards are just better, but they're still just relative to each other. So it's kind of fun to go, oh my God, look at how good this uncommon is. That would have been a mythic rare back in the day, but it doesn't really affect the play that much because all the cards are good. One thing that I've had concerns about, but I don't think it's really something that I would change necessarily, is complexity creep. There have been times when the sets have gotten just absurdly wordy and with a bunch of extra stuff on them that didn't really feel necessary. And I always am concerned about newer players coming in because of that, because, you know, I came in, around Shadowmoor Eventide, and not that long after, just a few years later, they came out with M10, and that felt like a really great kind of reset, and they called it like core fantasy flavor, and the cards were simpler, but it was really fun. Those were balanced, interesting sets that kind of just reminded us that just drafting is really fun just for the sake of it. You don't need all the crazy stuff to make drafting fun. And they've really kind of gone away from that. And they may be going back to it a little bit more, but that part's worried me, but also like selfishly it suits me. Like I like the more complicated sets. So yeah. What about you, Luis? Anything stand out?
I think the thing as a designer would probably do the most differently from Wizards if I were to be working there is I would probably push back more than it appears they have on the complexity. Because I do think that it's difficult, right? I mean, you've heard the famous Mark Twain quote, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one, which is, I love the quote because it's so true.
I haven't actually heard that. That's great.
It's really good. And when it comes to design, it's like, it's easier to make a complex cool card than a simple cool card, I think. Definitely. And to be fair to them, they've used up a lot of the territory when it comes to simple cool cards, which is not to say there's not tons and tons left. We can argue about whether it's infinite or not. That's kind of a useless argument, but I think that their complexity, not even understanding why they're there, they're making they're making 5,000 cards a year or whatever, like, some hideously large, not literally that many, but they're making like 2,000 or 1,400 cards a year or something like that. If they're making like 8 sets a year of various flavors, and they're not all 300 cards, but like they're making a lot more cards than they used to. And they've been doing this for a long time. A lot of the low hanging fruit has been picked. They have to climb higher and higher. But one of the ways to kind of break new ground and do that is to make your cards really complex. And I think that they lean on that more than I would prefer to. So that has definitely changed. The biggest thing that has changed, which I don't like when it comes to limited, is, and you so striking if you go back and play like IPA or Rise of the Eldrazi or some of the old classic good formats. If you miss a drop now, you lose a lot of these games. Like sometimes it's as simple as you don't have a turn 2 play on the draw and you're already like, I'm 25% to win this game, and it used to be that if you didn't have a play till turn 4, you could just have a normal game afterwards. Now you can't. It used to be that you have like a Doomblade in your hand and they play a 4-mana 3/3. You don't just snap Doomblade and untap and take your turn. Now it's like, of course you cast the removal spell on their creature. What are you going to wait? All the creatures hit really hard, or like, look at some of the worst creatures in the last couple sets. They all have really good abilities and they do things as you take turns, and they hit pretty hard.
If you put them on the battlefield, you do not like that if they're sitting across from you, even if they're the crappy creatures. Yeah.
Right. It used to be that when you had a removal spell, you kind of had to hoard it because your opponent probably had 3 or 4 creatures you really cared about in their deck. Now every creature is like a must kill. And I'm not saying Old Limited was perfect. It wasn't. But I wish that there was a middle ground of you miss it between, only 2 cards in their deck matter. And if you don't play a 2-drop, then you're really far behind. I think that one of the things I actually liked about Secrets of Strixhaven is when you play the soup mirrors, the like multicolor control mirrors, the spell mirrors, you both can have kind of bad draws. It smooths out because no one's doing anything. And I actually do appreciate that, even if you look at old formats and sometimes they're a little bit too glacial.
We'll do rapid fire for these last ones. Luke says, fill in the blank. The best card in a format should ideally be blank. I would say difficult to cast. I hate it when the best card in the format
costs mythic rare.
Mythic rare. Yeah. I just hate it when it's like, it's 3 white. Best card in the format. It's like, come on, like make me work for it a little bit. Gus says, hey guys, I was thinking about how you're both engaged in various things around games. Specifically, I'm thinking of live commentary and Luis's game design. Have you ran into surprising intersections when playing different roles? Ways that commentary feels like playing a game, or a lesson learned when designing what's revealed, that's revealed a new angle that you've used as a player? Yeah, I mean, for me in the booth, definitely getting a chance to see so many high-level players play from both positions where I have complete information for the most part, it was completely eye-opening to me.
I mean, I one of the things I really enjoy about my life and my career is how synergistic it is, where knowing people in Magic led to knowing people in game design, led back to knowing people in, you know, like it's all kind of circular in that sense.
Yeah.
But also just like the skills that make you a good Magic player, first of all, do not directly translate to make you a good game designer. Some of the game designers who've done the most damage to their games have been very good at the games they played. But there are some skills that are very good to have in both, and a deep understanding of the game certainly does help. For me, it's as I've gotten older, the thing that honestly I've come to appreciate most in people is like the ability and desire to do things and get things done. And that's a big dividing line. There's just are there people who will get things done and who will try to find solutions? Like, you know, they're solution oriented, not problem oriented. Like, I don't want to use too much buzz speak, but I guess a way to sum it up is high agency. If you're someone when something goes wrong, do you try to find a way around it, find a solution, and you're gonna figure it out, or you're someone who's gonna accept the first answer you're given and just be like, all right, I guess that's not gonna work. And it's like, no, there's just a lot of creative ways to solve most problems. Try to figure them out, and that's like totally a cool part about games. It's a cool part about how to win a game of Magic or to design a cool format. All those things kind of go together, up to and including things like, I remember at one point, you know, when I was talking about like my daughter, like maybe taking a plane by herself, right, to go visit my grandparents or her grandparents, my parents. And it's like, well, I need a ticket to go to the security. But they actually have a you know, accompaniment thing where you can figure it out. But I figured out at one point when I wanted to go to a gate for a flight I wasn't taking, I bought a ticket on Southwest, and then I just used it to get through security. Then I canceled the ticket. And like, didn't do anything wrong there. Southwest likes it because when you cancel a ticket, it turns into store credit, which is fine with me because I use enough flights, or I used to at least. I had a flight so I could make it through security. My point was, it's not like, oh, I don't have a ticket, I can't go through security. Well, there are solutions. And in this case, yeah, I was paying the cost of turning money into Southwest store credit, but at the end of the day, that didn't cost me any money because I used it. And I don't know. I have found that in all the different endeavors I do, trying to find solutions to problems is a trait that I like working with people who do that. I like interacting with people who do that. It makes my life better to try to figure out solutions or ways to make things better. It doesn't all have to be problems, you know.
It's also a rare trait. Braden says, I recently switched from coffee to Arnold Palmer's. Yes. Marshall, have you tried any of the sugar-free lemonades? Uncle Matt's Organic is my go-to, sweetened with stevia. I have, but I realized I don't really need to because I use such a small amount of lemonade that it's you know, it's an eighth of what I'm drinking. So I just use I get the stuff from whatever, just for the regular stuff from the store, the good stuff, but the regular good stuff. Joshua says, how do you stay motivated to keep playing Magic? Have you ever experienced a slump in your career or any negative mental hurdles to overcome? I love Magic, but sometimes when I'm on a heavy losing streak, it's demotivating for me. But regardless, I would never quit it because it still brought a lot of enjoyment to my life. Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, Luis's answer, I think, is more important than this. But Luis and I are both, we're like a dog with a bone, man. Like we just go. It's sort of how we're both built. I have a high tolerance to keep doing it. And for me, the thing that motivates me most is that it's like a competitive outlet. Like I like playing against people, you know, that's the interesting thing to me. That's how I played poker all those years too, even though poker gets boring at some point. I mean, you had more pressure because you were doing it for a living. Like,
yeah, but I was doing it for a living because I loved it, and I legitimately love Magic. Look, there are some professional Magic players, even extremely decorated ones, I'm not going to name any names here, who don't really like Magic. Yeah. Who ended up there because just whatever series of events ended up them being good at this thing and then making some money playing it, and they kind of went further into it, and it just became a logical thing to do. But that's totally fine. I'm not going to delegitimize any of their accomplishments or say that they're wrong for doing this, but like. You basically know who I'm talking about.
I do know who you're talking about, and we're talking about some of the best players. Like, we're not talking about somebody who's like scrapped out a career, you know?
Yeah, and we're talking about some people who they play because it's a job, and it's a better job than what they would have otherwise gotten for whatever reason between the pay, the freedom. It is more fun to play Magic than do a lot of work adjacent things, but it is a job. And outside of the Pro Tours, they don't play Magic. They watch TV or play video games or whatever. You know, all totally fine things to do. I just love Magic. I would play Magic even if I wasn't getting paid for it, as demonstrated by how often I do when it's not really like moving the ball forward in any particular way for me. You know, I don't do as many arena cubes I do when it's on arena on my phone because I need to practice for it, or I care about my mythic rank. Not even gaining mythic rank a lot of the time the way I draft. I've never passed a lines eye down in my life. Doesn't work out all that often. And I have a very high tolerance for doing the same thing over and over again. I've cubed on average more than once a day for the past couple of years.
Yeah,
that's a lot of cube.
Yes.
I'm not bored of it. I would love, if you ask me, hey, we've got 7 in the queue. Do you want to join it? Yeah, totally. I'm in, Totally. So I think for me, it's whatever my particular makeup with the way my brain works is. I am comfortable and happy doing the same things for a long time. And I have a very high tolerance for this.
I'm the same. I think it's how you're built. I think you should take breaks though. If it, for Joshua, if it's feeling heavy, you should take that break. Not everybody's built quite like that. Bits of Wolf says, do either of you enjoy the outdoors, hiking, camping, fishing, boating, whatever, unplugging and getting away from the daily grind? If you do, what are a memorable trip you've been on? Yeah, dude. Yes, I love, I used to do even more of it. But I love it. I would go hiking by myself. I got a whole setup. I would stay the night up there. I would do photography. I've hiked mountains around here, done rock climbing and stuff like that back in the day, with a friend of mine that I used to work with. I spent the night at the top of a mountain in one of those little lookout things, which was probably not the best idea. It was unbelievably cold, more colder than we thought it would be. But we somehow survived it. Yeah, I've done a ton. I love the outdoors.
Yeah, I also love the outdoors and do less of it than I would like. I used to do a ton of solo hikes here in Denver. The Flatirons in Chautauqua were one of my favorite hikes, just really beautiful out by Boulder. I don't because of the kids now. Yeah. And similarly, unplugging isn't really a thing that exists for me. I can't just turn off my phone at pretty much any time and just disappear, but that's fine. I'm really not unhappy about it at all. I love my life a lot. So right now, taking the dog out on the walk is like a big, good way to get exercise. The kids they have me hustling plenty. We actually, me and the 2 older kids, we play D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, but not really. Cause the youngest can't read yet, and we're basically playing pretend fighting in the basement, but I'm narrating an adventure and they make choices and they run around and they have a little camp. And it's kind of like I'm easing them in. It's my secret plan that when they're old enough, the older one, she's almost 10. She actually could just straight up play, but we'll just actually have a D&D game and they'll play in it and I'll run it. And so I'm kind of priming them for that. But,
okay.
When I was younger, also, I was in the Boy Scouts. Me and my dad and my brother would go backpacking every year. One of my favorite trips was we went to the Philmont, a big Boy Scout camp in New Mexico, huge camp, it's many hundreds of square miles, and did a 2-week backpacking trip, and it was just incredible. So I love that stuff. It's just a little harder for me to get away quite as much these days.
All right, one more question. Speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, this is Luis's burrito dilemma. After a long session of drafting with BK, a primal hunger only Galta understands overcomes Luis. Only a massive burrito will satisfy. Local burrito shop only takes cash. Looking at his wallet, Luis finds $20 and sets out with BK. On the way to the burrito shop, BK makes a quick pivot and stops at a garage sale. Interested but hungry, Luis gets out to look. Almost immediately, he comes across a battered shoebox that says $15 or best offer. Inside are a bunch of magic cards. A quick look reveals the Holy Grail. These cards are from Alpha and Beta, and they are definitely mint Power 9. Narrowly avoiding hyperventilation, Luis takes the box up to the checkout table, where a little old woman with a kind countenance says, "What you got there, dearie? Do you, 1, tell the sweet old woman that what she's got in the shoebox. 2, give her the $15 and try to walk away as calmly as possible to the car. 3, offer her $10 so you can still get the burrito." Chromonomicus came up with a pretty good little scene here.
I wouldn't do the third. That's just pushing it. So I've been in similar situations before. If it's someone who I think should know what they're doing, AKA not a little old lady who doesn't know what she's got, I'll just buy the cards. I remember at one a Magic convention many years ago, this guy was selling beta dual ends for way cheaper than he should. It's that's not my problem. You have a collection. You're at a Magic convention. You set the price. I'm going to accept it. If I've at a garage sale, I found $10,000 worth of cards listed for $10. In my advanced age at this point, I would probably tell them and not just shark them. When I was younger, I probably would have. As 18 years old, there's just no shot. I would just be like, wow, what a deal I got.
Yeah.
You know,
I got lucky. Yeah.
It kind of depends. If the person's like a jerk or something, then I would be less inclined to help them out. If there's someone, it's like, oh, these are my son's cards, you know, and I'm like, okay, I would feel too bad then. That wouldn't be cool.
Okay, well, if you do leave with them, there's a bonus question. You send in all the cards to get graded, dreaming of all the burritos you can buy with the proceeds. After a week, you get an email back from the grader. All the cards are fake. Do you, one, confront now it has quotes on it, sweet old woman about the scam she's running? Two, try to sell the cards on eBay? Or three, laugh about it and realize a burrito in a hand is worth more than two in the bush?
Oh, I would laugh about it. If it's $15, like they got you, you know, fair play at that point.
All right. Thanks for all the great questions for everybody from our Patreon. If you would have find it as patreon.com/limited resources. That's going to do it for this one. We want to thank Ultimate Guard for their support of the show. You can find us on social media, Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV pretty much everywhere. And you can find everything related to the podcast at lrcast.com, including Luis's first ever and every episode he's ever been on the podcast going back 12 years now. My God. Anyway, That's lrcast.com. That's going to do it for this one. We will see you next week.
All right. Not to disappoint, but this show is basically a long sign off. So we're going to call it here because I do got to run.
Yes.
A couple extra questions. You can take them here if you want, Marshall.
All right.
I got to bounce.
All right. See you, Luis. All right, so Luis is gone, but maybe I could. Okay, I have one Luis story I can tell. Everybody will believe it, but we were out at breakfast with the whole Channel Fireball team, and I was doing coverage, and I joined up with them for breakfast, and the lady was bringing out all the food, and you know, so somebody got the eggs, whatever, and the thing here, and then, and Luis got his breakfast and he's eating it. And, you know, it's always like this rush before a tournament. And it's like, oh, when do we need to be on the site? And how are we getting there? And, you know, that whole kind of, you just want to get to where you need to be so you don't miss the first draft. And I needed to work and all that kind of stuff. And then the lady came out and was like, I have an extra dish. Like there's a burrito, like a breakfast burrito. And Luis just goes, who the hell would order an extra breakfast burrito? Like we all have our full breakfast in front of us. And she's like, she's like, somebody ordered it. And he's like, yeah, it was me. He literally ordered an entire extra breakfast burrito to like eat on the way to the convention center. And, of course nobody was surprised. All right. That'll do it for this one. We'll see you next time.